Imagine walking into a room full of, like, the most educated, respected experts of your entire era. You know,
Oh.
you're standing before the absolute titans of geography, philosophy,
The
theology.
intimidating crowd.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you pitch them an idea, and they literally laugh you out of the room.
Hmm.
I mean, they call you a fool to your face.
Ouch.
Yeah. They claim that if you travel to the other side of the world, you'll find people walking around with their feet pointing up to the sky and their heads pointing down into the dirt.
Oh, wow.
Right. And they actually draft this formal report to the king and queen stating that in this mythical place you're describing, rain and snow fall upwards and trees grow upside down.
It's just so bizarre to think about now.
It is. And because your idea is so utterly ridiculous to them, so fundamentally offensive to their understanding of reality, they suggest you should be executed by hanging, just for bringing it up.
It's such a vivid, almost absurd historical image. And the person they wanted to hang for being this dangerous fool was Christopher Columbus.
Yep, the committee thought he was a total fraud for suggesting the Earth was round
Yeah.
and that you could actually reach the other side. So keep that image of those arrogant, mocking experts in your mind.
It's a great visual.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that historical moment is the foundational jumping-off point for what we are exploring today. So
Yeah.
welcome to this deep dive into the source material. We're looking at a highly structured, incredibly specific, and honestly pretty provocative essay today.
Very provocative.
It's titled The Other Shore, and it was written by a figure known as Deiform Buddha on May 31st, 2006. Translated and edited by Kinyu. Our mission today is to really map out this spiritual framework that the text presents to you, the listener.
Right. And just to give you a bit of essential context before we plunge in, this essay is a foundational document for a framework known as Lifechanyuan.
Which is fascinating in itself.
Oh, absolutely. If you aren't familiar, it emerged in the mid-2000s as this highly systematic, almost encyclopedic attempt to unify global religions, specifically Christianity and Buddhism, but with, like, scientific rationalism.
Right.
It creates this massive singular cosmology. And because this text makes very robust metaphysical claims about the afterlife, the nature of divine figures, the whole structure of reality, we are treating this purely as an analytical exercise.
Exactly. Just taking it apart to see how it works.
Yes. We are just the tour guides mapping out the architecture of these ideas. We aren't endorsing or debunking the theology, you know. We're just dissecting the underlying logic and the, well, rather bizarre metaphors it uses to make its case.
Okay, let's unpack this. The entire essay hinges on one core driving metaphor. Deiform Buddha argues that just as a physical river has a shore you currently stand on and another shore across the water, so does life itself. Capital L, capital I, capital F, capital E.
Right, the capitalization is very intentional there. In this framework, your physical body is merely the boat. It's just the temporary vessel you use to cross the river from the shore of earthly life over to this metaphysical other shore.
And the really crucial mechanic of this metaphor is that upon reaching the destination, the boat must be abandoned. Like you step off the boat, you don't drag a heavy wooden canoe onto dry land and try to carry it with you through a forest.
No, that would be completely counterproductive. Which brings us right back to Christopher Columbus and his committee of 15th century haters.
Right, the ultimate skeptic.
Exactly. To understand the journey to this spiritual other shore, the text forces us to examine why so few people even believe it exists in the first place. Columbus actually does a lot of heavy lifting for the author's argument here.
How so?
Well, when Columbus sought funding from the Spanish monarchs, reasoning that if you just kept sailing forward, you'd eventually loop around a spherical Earth, the monarchs convened a committee. And this wasn't just a group of uneducated peasants.
Right, these were the experts.
Exactly. This included renowned scholars and major theologians like St. Augustine and the Christian philosopher Lactantius. The text actually quotes their report. They asked, and I quote, "Are there such fools who believe there is a place where people walk with their feet pointing up?"
So condescending.
Extremely. They concluded that a round Earth was a myth designed to justify a two-poled fantasy. And they called Columbus a swindler who would make the king a laughingstock.
But the author isn't just giving us a history lesson here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Deiform Buddha is diagnosing why those experts mocked Columbus and then mapping that exact psychology onto modern spiritual skeptics.
Precisely. The text argues that the 15th century experts lacked a holistic understanding of the Earth. They couldn't zoom out far enough to see the globe. They were trapped in a flat, localized perspective.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and Deiform Buddha maps this directly onto how people today view the spiritual other shore. Modern skeptics lack a holistic understanding of the universe. To organize this, the framework categorizes humanity into 4 distinct groups regarding the other shore.
Okay, what are the groups?
First, the absolute non-believers. Second, the doubters. Third, those who know it exists but are totally unaware of what the conditions are actually like there. And fourth, those who actively wish to reach it but have absolutely no idea how to navigate the journey.
I mean, I have to push back a little here on the underlying logic of the essay.
Sure, go for it.
The author is comparing a physical, geographical reality around Earth that you can sail around, map out, touch, to a purely metaphysical realm. Does that parallel actually hold up? Because when Columbus crossed the ocean, he eventually brought back physical proof to the monarchs, right?
Did maps, resources.
Yeah, exactly. Maps, botanical samples. If this other shore is real, what is the proof here? In a metaphysical realm, there's no physical gold you can load onto a ship and show the skeptics.
Yeah.
Dismissing the need for physical proof feels like, I don't know, a very convenient loophole for any unprovable spiritual claim.
Oh, it's the ultimate philosophical tension in almost any spiritual framework. But Daeform Buddha's text actually anticipates this exact critique.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Within the internal logic of the essay, asking for physical proof of a non-physical destination is a category error. Because the physical body is just the boat, demanding physical proof is like demanding the boat be able to verify the existence of the mountain you plan to climb after you dock.
Oh, interesting.
Right. The boat cannot perceive the mountain. The boat only knows water.
Wow. Okay. I was thinking about it like a rental car, honestly.
A rental car.
Yeah. The text treats the physical body exactly like a disposable rental car you pick up at the airport of life. You drive it to your destination, and when you finally arrive, you hand over the keys and walk away. You don't obsess over the rental car.
You certainly don't drive it into your hotel room.
Exactly. But for you as the listener, it kind of begs the question, if we accept the premise and the destination is real, what does the map actually look like? Like, if this other shore is as real as the Americas were to Columbus, what is the geography we are supposedly navigating toward?
Well, Daeform Buddha provides a highly granular cosmology for that. It doesn't just offer a binary heaven and hell. It outlines 36-dimensional spaces.
Wait, 36? That is incredibly specific.
Highly specific. 36 distinct other shores where your life could potentially land depending on how you navigate. It creates this vast hierarchy of spiritual evolution.
Okay, so it's not a one-size-fits-all destination.
Not at all. The text explicitly names the most ideal destinations for life. The highest tiers are the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and at the absolute peak, the Elysium world.
They sound like varying, escalating tiers of a cosmic resort.
They kind of do.
Right.
But conversely, it maps out the least desirable shores too. If your navigation is poor or your spiritual structure is flawed, you could end up in the netherworld, the frozen layer, or the fiery refining layer.
Okay, so we have a hyper-specific mouth of 36 dimensions. We have the concept of the body as a disposable boat. But who is actually holding the compass? Like, who is steering the ship here?
And this is where the text introduces its central figure, the spiritual guide of Lifechanyuan. The author places this guide in a very deliberate historical lineage.
Right.
The essay acknowledges that Jesus Christ knew of the other shore. It acknowledges that Buddha Shakyamuni knew of the other shore, but it makes a rather audacious claim about their legacy.
It essentially argues that they left the job unfinished, doesn't it?
Exactly.
The text claims that while Christ knew about the other shore, he never comprehensively described the actual conditions of it. And while Buddha knew about it, he didn't provide a complete practical discussion of how to exist there. So this guide of Lifechanyuan steps onto the stage to finish the job.
Right, claiming to inherit the mission of Christ and Buddha to fulfill the will of the greatest creator. And the claims really escalate from there. The framework asserts that trusting Christ wasn't misplaced and trusting Buddha wasn't misplaced. Therefore, trusting the guide of Lifechanyuan is secure.
Because they're connected.
Well, more than connected. The text explicitly states that Jesus, Buddha, and the guide are one and the same, indistinguishable.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if you are claiming to be the indistinguishable sequel to the two most influential spiritual figures in human history, you would assume the goal is absolute global conversion, right?
You'd think so, yes.
But the text does a massive pivot here. It acknowledges that almost no one is going to believe this map, just like Columbus's committee. But instead of a mandate to save every single soul on Earth, the guide states that he only expects 1% of the population to believe this account.
1%.
Yeah, and that 1% is apparently sufficient.
It is a stark departure from those universalist traditions that aim for mass salvation. By capping the expectation at 1%, the framework creates a highly exclusive, almost elite spiritual tier.
I mean, I find the psychology of that 1% claim fascinating. If we look at it analytically, is this a psychological defense mechanism?
What do you mean?
Well, if you start a new spiritual movement and you know the modern rational world is probably going to reject you, claiming you only ever wanted 1% of them anyway, is a brilliant way to inoculate the movement against failure.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. If 99% of people call you crazy, you can say, see, the prophecy is fulfilling itself. We are exactly on track. Or, within the context of the essay, is it a genuine structural belief that evolving to the Elysium world is just statistically incredibly rare?
Based on the broader architecture of the text, it leans heavily toward the latter. The framework views spiritual evolution as an intensely difficult, precise upward climb. Most people simply do not have the structural capacity to make the journey.
Makes sense.
But to your point about skepticism, the text is hyper-aware of how these claims sound. If you claim to be indistinguishable from Jesus, and you claim to hold the exclusive map to 36 dimensions, you are inviting intense scrutiny. The world is going to label you a fraud, a megalomaniac, or a cult leader looking to build an earthly empire.
Which is exactly what the Columbus Committee called Columbus. A swindler looking to exploit the king for indulgences and fame. But if you look at history, anyone claiming to be a divine guide usually ends up aiming for, I don't know, a private jet, a compound political influence.
Right, the usual trappings of power.
Yeah. So how does deiform Buddha insulate this framework from the obvious accusation of it being a total grift?
By pointing to the historical track records of those past manifestations, and by demonstrating absolute contempt for earthly power, the text notes that Buddha renounced a literal kingship. He had no desire to rule.
Right.
And when crowds tried to crown Jesus as a king, he fled. Therefore, the essay argues, speculating that this current guide seeks earthly kingship or political power is completely baseless. The guide goes so far as to claim he would prefer death over ruling, and has absolutely no desire to remain in this physical world for even a single second longer than necessary.
And to really drive home just how repulsive earthly power is within this framework, the author uses two of the most memorable, bizarre analogies I have ever read. The first one involves the legendary monk Tang Zhang and the spider demons.
Oh, it's a brilliant use of folklore to explain relativity.
It's so good. Imagine spider demons capture Tang Zhang. They don't want to eat him, though. They want to honor him. So they offer him what they genuinely believe to be the absolute finest Michelin-starred delicacies in the world.
Which are?
Plump, juicy insects.
Yeah.
Right. To the spiders, this is the ultimate hospitality. But the text asks you, the listener, if you were Tang Zhang, would you eat it? Of course not. Delicious insects are prized by spiders, but they're fundamentally not food for a human monk.
It establishes that value is entirely subjective based on your level of existence.
Exactly. But the analogy that really reveals how this framework views human society is the king of dogs.
Oh, this one is brutal.
It is. The text asks you to imagine a pack of wild dogs that fight with each other incessantly over scraps. Finally, they get exhausted from the endless biting and clawing. So they approach a human, bow humbly, and beg the human to be their king and rule over them. The text asks, if you were that human, would you accept the role of ruling over a pack of fighting dogs?
If we connect these analogies to the bigger picture, the text is constructing a profound argument about the illusion of earthly success. In this framework, earthly power, whether you are a CEO, a billionaire, or the president of a nation, is literally equated to being offered a plate of plump insects.
Or being crowned the king of a dog pack.
Exactly. It is fundamentally beneath the reality of the 36 dimensions. The essay states that even the humblest, lowest citizen of the heavenly kingdom is infinitely nobler than the greatest king in this earthly world.
I mean, I love the visceral nature of those images, but I find myself questioning the underlying tone. Comparing human society with all our art, our struggles, our love, and yes, our conflicts, to a pack of incessantly fighting dogs. Well, is that just a stance of necessary spiritual detachment, or is there a deep well of arrogance there?
It's a fair question.
Right. But on a practical level, it certainly makes you stop and think about your own daily ambitions. If you are losing sleep over a promotion at work or stressing about your social status, and you adopt the lens of this text, you're essentially stressing over who gets the fattest insect.
And that cognitive dissonance is exactly what the text is trying to provoke. It wants to aggressively sever your attachment to earthly validation. As for the arrogance, the framework would argue it isn't looking down on humanity out of spite. It's simply recognizing a fundamental mismatch in environments.
Like the monk and the spiders.
Yeah, exactly. A human doesn't hate dogs because they refuse to be their king. The human just belongs to a completely different, higher dimensional reality.
Okay, so if earthly ambitions are just plump insects, and the ultimate goal is to get the heck out of here and reach the thousand-year world or the Elysium world, how exactly do we cross the river? Because this is where the essay pivots, and I mean, it pivots hard, it drops the mystical metaphors, and gives a surprisingly rigid, almost mechanical set of instructions.
It is a radical shift from the traditional spiritual playbook. The guide explicitly states that he will not preach the way Jesus or Buddha did.
Which is a massive paradox. You just claim to be indistinguishable from them, but now you're refusing to use their methods.
The author argues that the methods must evolve because the era has changed. And here is probably the most controversial line in the text. The guide claims that for most humans today, compassion and universal love are ineffective.
Whoa. Compassion and universal love are ineffective. That throws out the core tenets of almost every major world religion.
In this specific 21st century framework, good intentions are simply not enough to get you across the river. The text argues that to reach the ideal other shore, you cannot just be a good person. You must fundamentally transform the structure of your life.
So it's an ontological shift.
Yes, an upgrade to your spiritual operating system, not just a moral adjustment.
And this brings us to the final, and I think the most defining metaphor in the entire essay, the spacecraft analogy. Deiform Buddha says that you have to stop your aimless practices. Stop your haphazard feel-good cultivation.
No more wishful thinking.
Exactly. The process of spiritual growth is not about lighting a candle, saying a prayer, and hoping the universe provides. The text explicitly states that reaching the other shore is exactly like launching a spacecraft into outer space.
And the mechanics of it are entirely unforgiving. Every single calculation must be precise. The text warns that blind attempts and wishful thinking are a guarantee of failure. It says, do not harbor the slightest delusion.
That sounds intense.
It is. If you lack clarity on even one calculation, or if you entertain unrealistic, fuzzy expectations, the rocket will crash. You will never reach the ideal other shore.
So what does this all mean? To me, this feels like comparing traditional spirituality to writing a poem. A poem can be interpreted differently. It's about feeling. It's about the warmth of universal love.
Sure.
But this text treats spirituality like writing thousands of lines of computer code for a lunar launch. If you miss one semicolon, if one calculation is off by a fraction of a degree, the rocket explodes on the launch pad. But we follow this logic. Where is the grace?
That's the million-dollar question.
If the guide is the continuation of Jesus, where's the forgiveness for the spiritual mathematician who just carries the one incorrectly?
Yeah.
Does a small error mean you burn up on reentry and end up in the fiery refining layer?
That lack of grace is the central tension of the spacecraft metaphor. It completely removes the safety net of divine forgiveness and replaces it with the cold, hard physics of metaphysical engineering. To successfully launch this spacecraft, the text outlines very specific, intense prerequisites. You cannot just be purely logical, and you cannot just be purely faithful.
So if grace is off the table, what exactly are the physics here? What does the math look like for a spiritual spacecraft launch?
The text demands a synthesis that very few people can achieve, which actually ties back to the 1% rule. It says you will only succeed if you approach this journey with sincere scientific curiosity, inextricably combined with deep spirituality.
It's asking for a lot.
It is. You must understand divine revelations, genuinely grasp Christ's heart, and fully comprehend Buddha's teachings. It requires integrating the rational, unforgiving precision of an aerospace engineer with the profound, abstract intuition of an ancient mystic.
I mean, it is an incredibly tall order. You have to have a heart of Christ, the enlightenment of Buddha, and the exactitude of a NASA flight director. No wonder the guide only expects a fraction of a percent of humanity to even make it to the launch pad.
It creates a closed, internally consistent loop for the framework. If you fail to reach the Elysium world, it isn't because Deiform Buddha's map was wrong.
Right.
It's because your personal calculations were imprecise, or your life's internal structure wasn't properly transformed to handle the atmospheric pressure of the journey.
Well, we have certainly covered a massive expanse of philosophical ground today. We started with Christopher Columbus being laughed out of a 15th century committee room by theologians who couldn't fathom around Earth.
We covered 36 granular dimensions of the afterlife.
Yeah, and we explored the absolute rejection of earthly power, through the imagery of plump insects and dog kings. And finally, we arrived at the startling idea that spiritual salvation requires the exact, unforgiving mathematical precision of a spacecraft launch.
It is a dense, highly structured, and unapologetically demanding text. And again, as a reminder, our goal today was simply to map out the architecture of Deform Buddha's 2006 essay, The Other Shore. We aren't buying real estate in the 36th dimension,
No, definitely not.
but rather we're exploring how this source material attempts to build a bridge between ancient spiritual archetypes and a highly mechanical modern view of the universe.
It really is a fascinating thought experiment that completely flips the script on how we navigate our ambitions and our beliefs. Which brings me to a final thought for you to chew on as you go about your day.
Let's hear it.
Let's combine the Columbus story with that final spacecraft metaphor. If reaching our ultimate human potential actually requires the precision of a spacecraft launch, rather than just good intentions, are you actually doing the math in your own life?
Oh, I like that.
Or are you like the 15th century committee, assuming you already know how the universe works, while standing on a flat map? If you only have a 1% chance of reaching the ultimate destination, are you plotting the trajectory, or are you just hoping the boat magically drifts to the other shore? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. It's been an incredible journey. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.